Whether you're thinking of finally trying out a Resident Evil game for the first time, or you're just a survivor that's been out of the game for too damn long, then don't worry, I got you covered. There are so many prequels, sequels, remakes, and remasters that the good people at Disney would have all passed out just from excitement. Not to mention, but there are spin-offs galore in this franchise, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today. If you enjoyed this one and you want to see a how to play every Resi spin-off video, then let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make it. And while you're down there, what's your favorite Resident Evil game? Only extremely biased comments are allowed. Okay, let's stop mucking about. We have a lot of games to cover and we don't have all day. I've broken the video into chapters, so if you're here for a short time, not a long time, then jump straight to the game you're looking for, like the video, and enjoy the rest of your day. The original Resident Evil crashed through our windows and bled all over our carpets for the first time, but certainly not the last time, in 1996. Originally being released for the PlayStation, it was later ported to PC and the Sega Saturn. So guess what? Hanging onto your Sega Saturn for all this time has finally paid off. Just wipe the grime off it and pop in the disc and or cartridge and get to playing. Yeah, I was like 2 when the Sega Saturn came out. I have no idea how they work. What I do know though is Resident Evil got a director's cut in 1997, and not to be outdone by themselves, it was re-released again in 1998, this time under the name Resident Evil Director's Cut DualShock version. Just so well done, Sony. Now this is one for the purists. No future spoilers, but this game does go on to get remade and improved upon in almost every single way. If you want to check it out, PC or emulation would be the best way to get your grubby little mitts on this one. But I think I can save you the time just by showing you 5 seconds of this live action trailer. Yep, I think that just about covers all our bases. Resi 2 also released for the PlayStation just 2 years after the original in 1998. This was also the first game in the series to be ported to Nintendo, with Resi 2 eventually ending up on the Nintendo 64. In addition to this, it was also ported to Windows, Dreamcast, and GameCube 5 years later for some reason. So what's the best way to play this one today? Well, that would be Resident Evil 2 Rebirth, you big dummy. This is a patch created by Gemini that not only fixes a lot of bugs with the PC port, but also allows for options like custom higher resolutions, gamepad support, and Windows compatibility support, among a host of other improvements. Many consider this to be the definitive way to play the original classic. However, if emulation or old consoles are your jam, then might I recommend the GameCube version. Yes, it was absolutely destroyed when it launched, given that it was a full price re-release with very little improvements of a 5-year-old game. But given that now a GameCube is about as accessible as the original PlayStation, you may as well go for that version and just take the resolution bumps that it has on offer. Released for PlayStation and later ported to Dreamcast, Windows, and GameCube, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis came out in 1999. This was the first game in the series that took those baby steps onto that slippery slope that we now know as action-oriented gameplay. Despite being shorter and having less replay value than Resi or Resi 2, the game was still well received, and it was a great way to live out that fantasy of getting chased down by a 10-foot tall bioengineered zombie. Oh yeah. Okay, time to get ready for the one you're all here for. The 4th entry to the series that has gone from hero to legend to myth itself. Resident Evil Code Veronica is the 4th mainline entry to the Resident Evil series and was the first game to not debut on the PlayStation. That's right, Dreamcast owners, you get the dub this time. Yeah, take a minute, soak it all in. Feels good for once, doesn't it? Jokes aside, when it came out, many people considered this to be the best Resident Evil game to date, and there's actually quite a bit to unpack here in terms of how you can play it today. After its original release, a new version of the game called Code Veronica X was re-released and ported to the Dreamcast, PS2, and GameCube respectively. This included updated graphics as well as additional cutscenes to flesh out the story even more. Code Veronica X also received the HD treatment on PS3 and Xbox 360, giving it a fresh coat of paint. In addition to this, the game was also re-released as a PS2 classic that was available through the PS3 and again re-released for the PS4, meaning you could really play it through a PS5 if you really wanted to. Keep in mind though that if you do it this way, you'll be playing an emulated version of the PS2 release, meaning it's not going to be that up-resed HD PS3 version. Over in Xbox land though, the 360 version was added to its backwards compatible library, meaning that that game can be played on an Xbox One, a Series S, or even a Series X. As a final fun fact, this game, considered by many to be a spin-off, was actually designed as the true sequel to Resident Evil 2. The name Resident Evil 3, however, had already been given to an actual spin-off game that was being developed at the same time for PlayStation. We all keeping up? Lovely. Okay, we have to be getting pretty close to Resi 4 now. Alright, let's see, what do we have? After Code Veronica, it is Resident Evil. Hang on, I've already covered that. Well, turns out I haven't, because Capcom decided to take their 6-year-old game, remake it completely, and release it exclusively on the GameCube. This game features brand new gameplay mechanics, revised puzzles, brand new areas to explore, a revised script. This game is definitely worthy of being considered its own beast. Despite its graphics and gameplay being drastically improved from the original, due to its poor sales, this remake was also the catalyst for Capcom to take another step towards the action-oriented approach we come to know in later titles. As happens with anything when enough time passes, this game has been ported to everything. Special shout out though has to go to the versions available on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Going by the name Resident Evil HD Remaster, these games are not only super accessible today through modern consoles, but it's the only example of a game that I can think of that's been both remade and also remastered. Normally it's just one or the other, so fair play, Capcom. Ugh, holy hell. I mean, for a franchise that's only released 5 games, they sure are making me question my relationship with conventional numbering. Let's count them up. Resident Evil, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 that was technically supposed to be a spin-off, Resident Evil Code Veronica, which was technically supposed to be Resident Evil 3. We're just gonna pretend that I didn't see that for my own sanity, and Resident Evil 0. Released for the GameCube in 2002, Resident Evil 0 was a prequel to the events of Resident Evil and introduced a couple of gameplay changes to shake up the Resi formula, things like a companion system and item dropping instead of using item boxes. In 2008, the base game was ported to the Wii, but was remastered shortly after the release of the Resident Evil HD remasters. That means if you want to jump into it today, you can still play it on PC, the PlayStations, or the Xboxes, as well as the Nintendo Switch. Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. After 6 mainline games, it's time to talk Resident Evil 4. Deep breaths everyone, this one's gonna be big. Resi 4 was released exclusively for the GameCube in 2005, but unless you've been living under a rock for the past 17 odd years, then you probably know that that didn't remain the case. Today, you can play Resi 4 on GameCube, PS2, Windows, Wii, PS3, Zebo, how the fuck do you get in here? Get out! PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, iOS, Android, Nintendo Switch, and even a remade version in VR exclusive for the Oculus Quest 2. It's no surprise to see that it's everywhere, given that Resi 4 is considered to be one of, if not the, best game of all time. It revolutionized not only the survival horror genre, but pioneered third-person games and laid the platform for the over-the-shoulder camera. Good thing it didn't just stay on GameCube, right? Now, are all versions of these equal? No. Certainly not. If anything, each time the game got ported, it came along with more content. The PS2 port got the addition of Separate Ways, a new campaign scenario for Ada. The PC port got all the PS2 content, plus the addition of new weapons, new costumes, and an easy mode. The Wii version has all the PC improvements, but has also added in motion controls, making this one of the most unique ways to experience Resi 4. Today though, the best way to experience it is through one of the HD ports, most recently available on the PS4, Xbox One, PC, and even the Switch if you want to go portable. For anyone looking for a brand new Resi 4 experience though, the Oculus version is the one that you should be checking out. Running on Unreal Engine 4, Resi 4 here features redesigned gameplay and combat elements to make it more suited for a VR space, and despite the game being criticized for its censorship in certain areas, it's still one of the most unique and definitely one of the most immersive ways to experience this game. Resi 5 created a lot of franchise firsts. It was the first game in the series, including the spin-offs, to release on multiple platforms, being the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. It was the first game designed for 2-player co-op gameplay, and it was the first game in the mainline series to depart from the survival horror genre. A gold edition was later released for all 3 platforms that contained 2 campaign DLC episodes, new costumes, and a smattering of other knickknacks for an online versus mode. Today though, it has been re-released and remastered for the PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. So as far as accessibility goes, look no further. This is going to be the best way to check out the, quite frankly, ludicrous size of the Monty Pythons on your boy Chris here in glorious high definition. Seriously though, what the hell are they feeding this bloke? Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. This controversial game was developed under the watchful eye of Resident Evil 4 producer Hiroyuki Kobayashi, with the support of over 600 different developers, making this Capcom's largest production ever. So what do you get when you team up the creative minds from one of the best games ever made with a team of over 600 developers? Well, you get 4 interwoven character campaigns and a third-person shooter that was released to mixed reviews. Ouch. Released in 2012 for the PS3 and the 360, with the PC version dropping the following year, this game was ambitious, to say the least. Even all the cutscenes were filmed like it was a movie, with all the actors going through full hair, makeup, and wardrobe before even getting onto the mocap stage. I mean, just who does that? Oh, right, yeah. Capcom does that. Well, at any rate, as is expected, the game was re-released for the PS4, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch, with all the graphical enhancements and DLC packed in to make you consider buying this game all over again. Not a bad deal for new players though. Get ready to shit yourself, kids. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard was a return to the series' roots that fans had been crying out for since playing the original game almost 20 years ago. Released in 2017 for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, this was a huge and wildly successful shake-up to the series. You play as a brand new character in a brand new location. So new, in fact, that when it was first announced, people weren't even sure how this tied into Resident Evil at all. The game also used a brand new engine that looks absolutely stunning, called the RE engine. What an appropriate name, I hear you cry. Resident Evil engine makes a real statement. Well, it would, if this wasn't Capcom, who don't give two shits about how numbers and apparently initials work, because the RE engine is also known as the Reach for the Moon engine. Honestly, they make me want to cry. But the biggest change was in its perspective, putting you in the shoes of Ethan Winters. While it didn't revolutionize first-person games in the same way that Resi 4 revolutionized third, it did come pretty damn close, thanks to the addition of one little feature: the fact that this game could be played in its entirety, entirely through PSVR. That is absolutely fucked. No thank you. Still though, it quickly became one of the best games on VR, thanks to the fact that it was released at a time when what VR was doing was mostly tech demos and showcases. A port landed on Switch in 2018, as well as the game making the move to Amazon Luna and Stadia, whatever the fuck those are. But the biggest new development happened only 4 days ago from the time of publishing this video. Capcom dropped a full next-gen version that's available for PS5, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Series X, and it's updated the game to have full 4K compatibility, high frame rates, ray tracing, and 3D audio. The best part about it is that it's a completely free upgrade for anyone that already owns the game. The only exception is for PlayStation players who have downloaded Resi 7 for free via the PS5's PS Plus collection. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to buy your own copy to be able to get all of the next-gen features. Sorry about that. Oh god, no. Just as numbers were starting to become normal again, they've only gone and bloody done it again! Also, is this a Mandela effect thing? Because I could have sworn this game was officially called Resident Evil 2 Remake. Well, according to Capcom and backed up by Wikipedia, apparently it's not. It just confusingly goes by the title Resident Evil 2. In what is a very fortunate twist of fate, Capcom actually started thinking about remaking Resident Evil 2 all the way back in 2002 after the success of the remake of the original Resident Evil game. That means it would have been in the same style as the original game and the first remake. However, series creator Shinji Mikami didn't want to split development resources between that and the game that they were working on at the time, which was Resident Evil 4. Let's all just have a moment of silence for the parallel universe that split off from that decision, who probably got a worse version of Resi 4 and the Resi 2 remake. Okay, that feels like long enough. Resi 2 released in 2019 for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and completely reimagined the game by changing the fixed camera angles to the over-the-shoulder perspective that we got in Resi 4. Throw into the mix the use of the RE engine created for 7, and this game just looks gorgeous. I mean, I know that now is totally not the time, what with everything going on in this police station, but fucking A, I'd eat that burger. Like with Resi 7, Capcom have also made a free next-gen upgrade available for the PS5, Xbox Series S, and X with all the bells and whistles that I just mentioned for Resident Evil 7, and it's available right now. Don't call it a remake. Seriously, we just said it. Officially, it's just called Resident Evil 3. Great. Resident Evil 3 Remake came out in 2020, once again for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And once again, it has that next-gen upgrade available now for current-gen consoles. I guess Capcom looked at its previous few entries and thought to themselves, things have been running a bit too well recently. Time to bring back the controversy. Because mechanically, Resi 3 is very similar to the Resi 2 remake. However, they have made a lot of changes to the core game. By changes, I of course mean cut content, with several locations, player choices, and multiple endings being removed to create a tighter narrative. Additionally, the extra mercenaries mode from the original was not included in the remake, which might not sound like a big deal, but if I can run around as a big old block of tofu, then you would expect to find that sort of stuff here. Instead, Capcom packaged in a new separate multiplayer game called Resident Evil Resistance, where 4 players work together to beat a single mastermind player who can create enemies, traps, and other obstacles. Real cabin in the woods sort of vibes. The final mainline game you can get your hands on now in 2022 is Resident Evil Village. Someone, somewhere, decided to not even call it Resident Evil 8 because you can just hide that shit in the subtitles now. See? So I, for one, can't wait for Resident Evil Weet-Bix in 2025. This is a direct sequel to Resi 7 and the only game so far to not need any remasters, remakes, or next-gen ports because it was released natively on our current-gen consoles. In addition, it also came out on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Stadia, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but a version's supposed to be coming out sometime this year for macOS. Similar to RE5, Village has a heavier focus on action and combat, despite the first-person perspective is still bringing all the scares. Speaking of, Capcom have just announced the first piece of story DLC for Village, alongside the announcement that a third-person mode is coming to the game. This is going to turn Village into a game much more similar to the RE2 or RE3 remakes, which could be very cool. This update is also going to include a Mercenaries mode that was left out of the RE3 remake, and Lady D is going to be a playable character. That's some big, step on me mummy news. All of that is set to release on October 28th, 2022, but it already sounds like it's going to be worth checking out. Okay, so probably jumping the gun a bit on this one, and things could definitely change, but it just felt weird doing this video and excluding this one from the list. The heavily rumored and highly anticipated Resident Evil 4 remake has finally been announced and given a release date of March 24th, 2023. At this stage, it's going to be heading to the PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC. Like the other remakes, it looks to make a number of changes from the original as the franchise slowly starts to rewrite its own history, with the story here looking like it's been reworked to tie in more closely with Resident Evil Village. The other big talking point unearthed as the internet continues to fight for every scrap of information we can get on this game comes from one of the recent trailers, and it appears to show something pretty incredible. Okay, freeze there, rewind it a bit. Yup, stop. Okay, frame by frame now. Incredible. Actual footage of Leon S. Kennedy aiming his gun and I barely believe it myself, moving at the same time. Huge if true. Now it would make sense that he could do that here, since he could do it in the RE2 remake, and it would be a weird way for his character to regress between those games, but it would still be a huge change, given this is a game that people know so closely. Just circle the date in your calendars now, kids. This is going to be a big one. Now, Capcom deserves a special shout out here because they've done something really incredible with this franchise. Not including the upcoming RE4 remake, Capcom has developed and published 13 mainline Resident Evil games over a whopping 25 years between 1996 to 2021. Unlike long-running movie franchises that are pretty accessible whenever you want to watch them, long-running game franchises normally don't have that same luxury. As new generations of consoles come out, old games on old hardware tend to get left behind in the dust unless someone does something about it. In the case of Resident Evil though, if you have a PS4, an Xbox One, or either of the newer consoles, you can play versions of Resident Evil 0, Code Veronica, or any of the games 1 through to 8 because Capcom decided to remaster, remake, and port all of those games onto modern gen hardware. Better yet, for PC players, you have access to all the Resident Evil games, including the original 3 that have been made even better thanks to community mods and patches. Alright, confession time. I've actually never played a Resident Evil game myself. I hate horror and I scare way too easy, but I've always been fascinated by the series, so I made this video as much for myself as I did for any of you watching. Now don't worry, this has been fully researched and I promise I haven't led you astray anywhere, but as I was researching for myself, I really started to think that I've been missing out here, so I decided to jump in and start playing the Resident Evil HD Remaster, and I've decided to make that the first Let's Play I'm going to do on the channel, so hopefully that's going to be available in a few short weeks. If you like this and you're interested in that, then subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when it comes out. And while you're waiting, check out some of my other stuff on the channel and let me know in the comments if you have any other game franchises you'd like to see this sort of video cover. Thanks for wasting some time with me, have a great day, and as usual, let's go! I'm not gonna lie, daughter has her brain fried. My lady Papa's